I was excluded from the family trip for being just the poor sister. A week later, I bought the resort where they were staying. I'm going to tell you this true story, and I want you to tell me if you've ever been through something similar, because this account will affect you in a way you don't expect. My name is Carolina, and this is probably the craziest, most absurd, and most honest story I have to share in my entire life. If you're watching this now, it's because something inside you recognized that this story is important. I grew up in an upper-middle-class family, the kind you see in TV shows, the kind you think is supposed to be perfect. A big mansion, a pool, international travel, everything that should be a symbol of success and stability. But you know that feeling when you're somewhere and you're absolutely sure you don't belong? I've always had that feeling inside my own home, ever since I was a child. I remember sitting at the dinner table while my parents talked about my brother's investments. They spoke with a sparkle in their eyes, with enthusiasm, with hope. When I opened my mouth to talk about my school, some accomplishment of mine, it seemed like no one was really listening. It was as if I were invisible. I grew up observing a very clear, very obvious difference in the way I was treated compared to my older brothers. My parents always invested heavily in my brother's businesses, the ones who were born with the right connections, with the right doors open for them from the day they were born. They didn't have to fight. While they went to expensive universities abroad, studying business and finance at prestigious international institutions you see in American movies, I was here, studying at a public university, working on weekends, early mornings, and holidays to afford my books, my transportation, my entire life. I remember coming home with money I earned from working, and my older brother would ask where it came from, as if I had stolen it. No one in my family helped me back then. And when I say no one, I mean literally no one. No one offered a scholarship, no one offered an emergency credit card, no one offered valuable professional contacts that would open doors, no one even asked if I was okay or if I could afford everything. I was the invisible daughter who didn't turn a profit, the one who didn't have the potential for big immediate gains, who couldn't bring prestige or valuable connections to the family name. While my brothers were at fancy dinners meeting influential people, high-level networking, I was at home doing schoolwork while working as a waitress at a fast food restaurant, coming home late, waking up early. My father never asked how my day was. My mother never offered me soup when I came home tired. It felt like I was nobody's responsibility. Nobody took care of me, nobody cared, and that became very clear very early on. At 28, after 14 years of hard and consistent work, after countless rejections, failed interviews, and poorly paid internships, I finally landed my first real job at a tech startup that was starting to take off in an absolutely absurd way. The company was growing exponentially. It had received investment from major venture capital funds. I was a project manager, responsible for teams of 30 people or more, making decisions that affected the entire company, decisions that determined whether the startup survived or failed. But even with all that responsibility, even holding a position of power and influence within the company, I earned less than my brothers who inherited the family businesses without doing a single thing to deserve it, without ever breaking a sweat. While I worked 60-70 hours a week, often going to bed without proper sleep because I had a deadline I couldn't miss, which could mean the end of the company, they were enjoying lives of pure luxury with money they never earned through their own effort. Money that just fell into their laps because they were born with the right last name, because they were born in the right cradle, to the right parents. Fine, I accepted that as part of the life I had chosen. I accepted being the sister no one had time to remember, the one no one included, the one no one invited. I accepted that in family group chats, most conversations were about the other's businesses and trips. When my name came up, it was usually a quick question like, "So, is everything okay at work?" And then they'd immediately go back to the important topic. I had learned to be small. I had learned to take up less space. But then, during a Sunday lunch at my parents' house, my family planned an absolutely luxurious trip. A whole week at a 5-star resort in the Caribbean, the kind of place you see in fashion magazines, with infinity pools that seem to never end, a private beach with sand as white as sugar, food prepared by renowned chefs who've cooked for celebrities, a spa with treatments that cost more than my monthly rent. All paid, all-inclusive, food, drinks, an all-day open champagne bar, spa, water activities, nightly shows, the complete package of absolute luxury. I listened to the conversation about the trip and my heart started to race. Maybe now, maybe I would finally be included. Maybe I would finally be remembered. Maybe I would finally be considered part of the family. When my mother called me specifically to invite me, she was honest, at least a little. She said they had space, but it would be tight. She said it would be nice if we were all together at that moment. My heart raced even more. That felt like a genuine invitation. That felt like love. When I asked if they could help me with the accommodation, since at that moment I was saving every penny I earned to get my own apartment, to finally move out of a shared rental with two strangers, the conversation took a turn I will never forget as long as I live. My older brother, Marcus, the one who was always the perfect son, the one you see in movies, took the phone. He said, and I quote this word for word because I will never forget it as long as I exist, "Carolina, you're just the poor sister, you can't even afford a week at a 5-star resort on your own. It would be extremely embarrassing for the family if you showed up and had to ask for money for any extras, for any experience, for any time you wanted to go out at night or try something different. People would ask about you, they would judge you, they would notice that you're different from us, that you're not on the same level. So I think it's better if you stay home this time. Maybe some other time when your financial situation improves." That sentence pierced my soul like a dagger of pure ice. It went deep. It went in to stay. It went in to never leave. I asked my father to intervene, for my mother to defend me, for someone to say that it wasn't true, that I mattered, that I was valuable, that I deserved to be there too. But do you know what happened? Absolute silence. The kind of silence that means total agreement. The kind of silence that kills more than any scream ever could. The kind of silence you carry with you forever, that haunts you at night. My father just looked away, as if he didn't want to make eye contact with me. My mother mumbled something weak about, maybe next time. And that was it. I wasn't invited. My family went to that resort without me, leaving behind the daughter, the sister, the person who had silently given everything for them for years. They posted on social media repeatedly. Hundreds of photos. Selfies with expensive champagne in hand, photos at sunset on the breathtaking beach, pictures of them hugging at the spa, genuine laughter, hugs, special moments that should have included me. All that I couldn't have because I was too poor. Where am I telling this story from? Straight from the heart of someone who was destroyed by people she loved more than she loved herself. Someone who believed that family meant unconditional loyalty, and who learned in the worst way possible that it's not always like that. But now comes the part you're probably waiting for. The turning point. The moment that changes everything forever. After that brutal humiliation, after crying at home for 3 straight days, questioning my own self-worth as a person, my own existence, I did something different. Instead of giving up, instead of believing that no, I channeled all that accumulated anger, all that deep pain, all that frustration into pure work. And not ordinary work, no. Into absolute, obsessive, almost manic dedication. I started working at night too, in addition to my day job. I took on freelance projects, consulting for big companies, anything I could do to make more money. My goal was crystal clear: never again would I be that person who asked for help, who depended on anyone, who was inferior. Never again. I worked non-stop. I worked until I couldn't stand up anymore. And then I kept working. 3 months after that trip of my abandonment, of my public exclusion, the startup where I worked received a buyout offer from a giant multinational, one of those companies you see in documentaries about technology. It wasn't a small offer, not even close. It was an offer that would change my life forever, that would put me in a position I never imagined I'd be in. The work I did while forgetting to sleep, the projects I managed with fanatic dedication, those late nights of intense work without public recognition, all of it resulted in an amount of money I never imagined I would have in my entire life. The number was so big it seemed unreal. I received my buyout bonus. A sum so large I had to sit down to breathe for a few minutes. I had to ask the lawyer to repeat the number. When I saw the number in my bank account, when I clicked several times to make sure it was real, I cried. I cried a lot. Not out of sadness, but of absolute relief. Of complete validation. Of silent revenge. Those 14 years of work, all those years of struggle, had been worth it. It was for this. I didn't think twice about how to spend it or what to do. I didn't buy a luxury car, I didn't travel to Paris, I didn't do any of the obvious things you'd expect someone to do when they suddenly receive that kind of money. Instead, I started an obsessive search. I found out the exact resort where my family had stayed, the one Marcus had posted the best photos from, the one where he took a selfie holding a glass of very expensive wine from the best vintage. I found out that resort was for sale. I knew it was complete madness. I knew people would think I had lost my mind, that I was doing something out of pure revenge, that I was being immature and impulsive. But I had to do it. Not for revenge, not really, but to prove to myself that that rejection was not the absolute truth about who I am. That rejection was just the small opinion of small people who couldn't see beyond the money I had at that specific moment. That rejection was a pure reflection of their limitation, not my reality. I began silent negotiations with the resort owners. No one in my family knew. Absolutely no one. I hired a lawyer specializing in luxury real estate, consulted experts, reviewed every detail of the contract with a magnifying glass. It took a whole week of intense negotiations, many cold coffees while talking on the phone, many calls with my lawyer at random hours of the night. But I managed to close the deal. I bought that resort. I bought the exact place where my family was when they rejected me. I bought the place where they said I was too poor to be. And here comes the moment everyone is waiting for, that everyone wants to know about, when my family found out. My mother heard the news on television, believe it or not. She was watching a show about successful female entrepreneurs, and there I was, her daughter, their sister, buying a luxury resort in the Caribbean. Her jaw dropped. She called my father. They called my brothers. And the conversation we had afterward was out of this world. My mother cried, apologized in a way I had never heard from her before, said she had been horrible to me, that she had let things happen without intervening when she should have defended her daughter. My father simply couldn't believe it. He kept asking, where did you get this money? How did you do it? What was this opportunity we didn't know about? And my brother Marcus? Well, he disappeared. Disappeared from the family's WhatsApp group, didn't answer messages for months. When he finally reappeared, it was because he wanted to ask for a favor. He wanted to use the resort to impress a girlfriend. He wanted the validation I had earned. You're hearing this story directly from someone who lived every second of it, every raw emotion, every profound transformation. You're hearing the voice of someone who turned pure rejection into fuel, deep pain into power, and brutal humiliation into absolute success. But here's what I want you to understand, and this is the most important part of this whole story: this was not a story of petty revenge. Yes, I bought that resort partly because I wanted to prove a point. But I did it because I needed to prove to myself that I was more than what my family believed I was. Because that no I received was not the truth about who I am. It was just their limitation, their inability to see potential, it was their mediocrity reflected in their words. Today, that resort is managed by an incredible team I carefully hired, people who believed in me before I became well known, people who saw my potential when no one else did. It's the highest rated resort in the region. It has 5 stars on every review platform. People travel from all over the world to stay there because they feel the energy, they feel the purpose, they feel that place was built with love and real meaning. And you know what the best part is? I host my family as special guests whenever they want tea. Because that no I received was not the truth about who I am. It was just their limitation, their inability to see potential, it was their mediocrity reflected in their words. Today, that resort is managed by an incredible team that I carefully hired, people who believed in me before I became well known, people who saw my potential when no one else did. It's the highest rated resort in the region. It has 5 stars on every review platform. People travel from all over the world to stay there because they feel the energy, they feel the purpose, they feel that place was built with love and real meaning. And you know what the best part is? I host my family as special guests whenever they want to come. Free of charge. Free accommodation, free food, free access to everything. But with a lesson learned. With the deep understanding that their limit is not my limit. That their rejection is not my reality. So let me ask you a question, a real question that comes from the bottom of my heart. Have you ever been left out for being not enough at something? Have you ever felt that weight of being underestimated by the people you love most? How many times in your life have you given up on something because someone said you weren't worthy? Comment your story below. Share with me how you reacted when you were first underestimated. Genuinely, from the heart, I want to know your story because stories connect people. And then if this story touched you, if it stirred something deep inside you, if it inspired you even a little, share it with someone who needs to hear that their rejection can become their greatest absolute victory. Share it with that friend who is giving up, with that person who doesn't believe in themselves yet. Subscribe to the channel for more transformation stories like this. Real stories of real people who overcame impossible obstacles. Let's grow together in this community. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being here with me on this journey.